storyteller, historian, hellraiser. It's Dave Carter, and this is The Dave Carter Show.
Podcasting from Memphis, Tennessee. He's a soldier, storyteller, historian, and maybe a bit of a hellraiser. Click, listen, and enjoy. It's Dave Carter on the Ricochet Audio Network.
Hey folks, I am Dave Carter. It's a delight to welcome you to the program today. And if you're listening to the show, then what I'm about to tell you makes no sense at all. In fact, more correctly, it makes less sense maybe than most of the stuff you'd hear anyway. But if you're watching us and you saw at the beginning the side view, you'll notice that there are several LED candles on the desk. And that's not because I'm trying to do a romantic candlelit podcast here. What's happened is, Valentine's Day is around the corner, right? So, yeah, what happened is the LED lights that illuminate my workstation here fizzled out a few days ago while I was recording. They died. And so some more stuff is on the way. It's not here yet, but I wanted to go ahead and continue with the show. Later on in the program, you'll notice that that the lights are working, right? And everything's fine, but you'll also notice that my attire is a little different. Pre-recorded segment. This is not a Diana Ross halftime Super Bowl situation where I'm going to do 27 costume changes in the course of a 10-minute program. What happens is some of this stuff is pre-recorded to accommodate the schedules of my guests and also my own work schedule. So that's kind of what happens with all that.
Let's go, Diana. You got to get the show going here.
Alphonse, nobody asked you to chime in here.
Okay.
Pretty riveting programming, isn't it? For those of you wondering what that was all about, a friend of mine from Louisiana, Alphonse Fontenot, chimes in every now and then, and you just never know. But never mind what he does here. So we've got some interesting folks to talk with today, including National Review artist Roman Genn, who came here from the Soviet Union. It was certainly in his interest to do so. So he came here, and he's going to be with us for a little bit. And also one of our favorites, Career Special Forces Officer Lt Col Brendan Welsh, will be along to talk with us about the foreign policy implications of the new administration and all that kind of fun stuff. So rather than me just sitting here rattling on, why don't we go ahead and get to it, shall we? When I wrote a note to Roman Genn asking if he'd like to appear on the program, he wrote back like Doc Holliday in the movie Tombstone. He writes, "Say when." And you just don't turn down opportunities like that. Roman was born in Moscow in 1972 at the height of the Cold War. He quickly sized up the political realities of his country, and so at age 5, he says he began to collaborate with the communist regime by drawing propaganda posters for his kindergarten class, including, "Thank you, Comrade Brezhnev, for our happy childhood." Apparently, this earned him extra food, cool toys, and soft toilet paper. He writes that in his early teens, quote, ungrateful for his free education and Soviet health care, a greedy and unpatriotic Genn began to draw a series of reactionary caricatures critical of the government and the Soviet system. At first, these attempts were merely an adolescent ploy for cheap popularity and a way to look cool in front of the girls. Later, however, when he attempted to sell these works on the streets of Moscow, many unpleasant encounters ensued with the police. Reprimands were handed out by the administration of the Moscow Art College, which had been foolish enough to admit him. It was time to leave the motherland, and through the kindness of strangers, Genn landed in Los Angeles in 1991, where he lives and prospers. His artwork has been in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, Newsday, Newsweek, Harper Collins, you name it. He's been there, apparently. And, oh, yes, he was labeled as, quote, that attack dog that Buckley unleashed upon the world. And it's a delight to welcome him here today. Roman, how are you, sir?
I'm excellent. Good to be with you, Dave.
Thank you so much. And you're joining us on the phone. You sound great. Let me ask you, I've got a picture right now on the screen of you and William F. Buckley Jr. So you've been doing artwork for the cover of National Review for some time now, right?
Oh, forever. I think since '94. Sorry, not to be on the video. I have corpses here that
No, that's
I
fine.
didn't hide.
That's fine.
And dead cats, and you can imagine what can happen during the pandemic.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you're like the cat lady now, huh?
I am. I used to be the cat lady. They're all dead now. So.
Okay. So how did the National Review gig come about? Did Bill Buckley scoop you up in Los Angeles, or how did that all? What happened?
They found me floating in a Atlantic Ocean, and,
like Moses, huh?
Yeah, Buckley stopped the yacht and pulled me out and asked me, in his manner, whether I can be good for something. And I told him I used to draw, and that's how I got my job.
Well, okay, it works for me.
He didn't have the heart to send me back to wherever I floated from.
Well, yeah,
So,
even as a little baby, he heard your accent and said, "No, we can't send him back there."
Right. He has a speech impediment. He will not survive.
We gotta help this kid out somehow.
Exactly.
So last week, or the week before, whenever it was, I was talking with Rob Long about the election and the fallout, and he tried to tell me why I shouldn't be as pessimistic as I've been feeling lately. So leaving aside for the moment the election and the immediate turmoil that followed, now you were born and raised in the Soviet Union. So you have firsthand experience with what happens when an artist or a commentator or even a private citizen runs athwart the prevailing governing orthodoxy, right? So, I mean, I think you even said one time that the criterion for recognizing a cartoonist is that he was put in jail. Do I remember that correctly?
Right. It's one of the three prerequisites for greatness.
What are the other two? Should I ask?
One is suffering for your art.
Yeah.
Second one is sense of humor, and the third one is ability to draw. So
Okay.
quite a lot of people have 2 out of 3, which does nothing. So you gotta have 3 to be great.
You pick which one of the 3 are the most important, but you got to have all 3.
Right. It's sort of like von Manstein's definition of field marshal. You have to have to storm the fortress, to lead the armies in the field, and something else. I rather forgot. So in a cartooning world, it's you have to suffer. You have to have a sense of humor, and you have to be able to draw.
Okay.
And yes, I'm actually I totally forgot. Yes, I am at National Review for about 25 years. So I'm one of the oldest collaborators.
You're okay. So you got out of the Soviet Union, came here in '91, and you've seen the political evolution that's taken place here in the U.S. So in broad terms, what do you make of the direction that America is heading politically?
Well, I was just talking about it with a friend of mine who's also from the Soviet Union. And he told me something interesting, that when we lived in the Soviet Union, the society was very established with its set rules. So in essence, you come to a boring Komsomol meeting where people who don't believe in it say stupid things, and then you just nod, and nobody really believes in it.
Try to stay
but
away.
the rules are set. So what we're witnessing in the United States today, unfortunately, is the Soviet Union, or rather Soviet Russia in 1920s, where any idiot, any crazy person, can point a finger and say, you look at, he belongs to the other class, or he said something, or we've seen him, passing something to an English spy, or he has clean nails and something, and they will fire you, obviously, and fire you, jail you, or shoot you. So that's where we are in the current situation in the United States. Fortunately, nobody is shooting anyone yet, and nobody is putting anyone in jail. But the tendency of this insane mob to point out the enemies and to harass them and to get them fired, this cancel culture, this idiotic insanity, madness, witch hunts, are exactly where we're going with that. So that, of course...
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that, of course, makes one wonder, but fortunately, we don't have a situation where they outnumber us, 20-1. It's about 50-50 politically. So it's 45% of the country is on one side and 45% is on the other side. So they clearly do not have the majority yet in order to impose this insanity upon us. But they're definitely trying.
They're working on it, right?
And the more we talk about it, the more we explain to people that, today they're coming for some actress who said something perhaps appropriate or not appropriate. I personally think that it was absolutely appropriate what she said.
Yeah.
But tomorrow they're going to come after you, for your parking spot, because you didn't bow sufficiently on the street or whatever idiotic reasons they will make up. So that to me is we need to explain to people that this is where this is all going.
You mentioned earlier about in the 20s in the Soviet Union that people would be shot if and hurt, or assaulted. But I wonder if if things are at a situation or at a point here where they don't even have to do that they can cancel you and accomplish what they want without firing a shot.
Well, that it starts with that,
Okay.
But then it eventually it always leads to violence, because somebody who's canceled may not want to be canceled. They may open some kind of find another channel for their thoughts, find another newspaper or find another company. We just need to understand that people who come after your freedom eventually will come for your life. That's how that's what we learned from centuries and centuries of human history. Unfortunately, as Heine at some point said that people who burn books, in due time will burn people.
Yes,
they always do.
Yeah. Okay, so there's statues, books, you name it.
Statues. They start with statues. They start with our heritage, changing it. Then they start canceling people, making them in the Soviet Union was a term non-persons, which is the people were expunged from life without they were not mentioned. They just disappeared from history. I can definitely see the tendencies here. We're not at that point. I don't want to sound alarmist or anything.
Right.
But
that's the direction it's heading, though, right?
Direction is definitely clear. This is people, that's the thing. So there was an actor recently that wanted me to be fired from National Review, and I knew the guy had quite a lot of drinks with him. Throughout the years, so he wanted me to be fired from my job for disagreeing, about something. So it's they are definitely coming after us.
Well,
so
it starts with
what do we do about it?
It starts with the cultural purging, like you're talking about. What do you make? I think you probably already answered this, but the effort to deplatform conservatives on social media and pretty much to vilify anyone who supported former President Trump, not because they thought he was a wonderful guy, but because they thought his policies were a net good for the country in terms of employment, energy independence, border security, that kind of thing. Should those people be lumped in and labeled as insurrectionists and villainized by their government and the press?
Well, I've been canceled on Facebook. I had to reroute my ways.
Yeah, I've noticed.
So clearly they're not targeting me anymore because I don't put National Review on my place of employment, but they clearly targeted National Review before. So, the problem with that is this, that Facebook, let's say, or other platforms are private companies. They can pretty much do what they want. What we need to do is we need to start our own platforms and companies and leave their platforms so we can do whatever we want without any dependence on them. And I think that would be a wiser decision than, let's say, some kind of regulation.
Right. And I think, for example, I believe the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro and his folks are working on that Parler was kind of an effort in that direction. But that needs to happen, absolutely.
But there is of course a problem there where we're going to be arguing with ourselves. So
That's fine.
It's going to be echo chamber constantly. We need to talk to the other side too.
Right.
So because that's what we need to change their minds. We need to explain to them. Instead of just talking to ourselves and the people who believe in the same thing, well, that would make a boring dinner party. So, I personally like to drink with people with whom I disagree.
Yeah.
So because that improves my arguments.
Right.
If I sit at the table with people that I agree and we just nod and the world is going to hell. Oh yeah, of course. It's a boring dinner.
And you're sitting there bobbing your heads up and down like Beavis and Butthead at Hooters or something. It doesn't accomplish anything, right? So yeah, I get it.
No.
Let's get back to your work for just a minute, the political cartoonist. Am I correct in saying or observing that political cartoons, to me at least, have become less edgy over time? They've kind of had to soften or have decided to soften what they do?
Yes, absolutely. Because the problem is we depend on the newspapers, and newspapers depend on advertisement, and the advertisers are subjected to complaints from various lunatics looking at getting pissed at everything 24/7.
Right.
So it used, and they can seriously hurt you. They can contact your advertiser, harass the advertiser into pulling out the money out of the newspaper. Mm-hmm. So eventually, what happened was the edginess died, and the art became soft, and it's a cliche to say it's politically correct, but it's basically a toothless humor, unless you're criticizing Trump, which is allowed, and people like to pretend to be brave and for criticizing Trump, which was basically
it's as simple as inhaling and exhaling.
Right. It's not. It doesn't cost you anything. Nobody's gonna come after you. No. To break your legs and hands and put you in jail. And so I'm always laughing at my colleagues saying that, oh my God, look at how brave I am. I drew Trump. And before that, of course, I remember that. At some parties here in Los Angeles, people would come to a film director and say, "Oh my God, you're so brave! You spoke out against Bush," as if Bush would come and torture you and break your legs. Or Cheney. Well, Cheney might actually. He's pretty good with a shotgun, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, that was a difficult shot to make.
Well, only the best can do it, huh? Okay, so. Here's a weird thought, but you may have thought about this and just dismissed it as a lunatic, which it is. I just thought of it. How cool would it be if someone did a caricature of someone getting their nose out of joint about a caricature? Literally. How cool would it be that you have a caricature done of a prominent person literally getting their nose out of joint, getting angry about a caricature?
Well, we do that. I mean, historically it's been done. Like Boss Tweed, for example. Classical example is Boss Tweed going after Thomas Nast. And obviously, Boss Tweed was unhappy, and his famous line was that they can't read, but they can see the damn pictures. So obviously, Napoleon was rather unhappy about cartoons about himself in the English newspapers, and demanded that cartoonists be punished and equal to the counterfeiters and some other criminals. And Hitler, of course, was not happy about cartoons depicting him. Stalin, obviously.
Who gets most torqued off about caricatures? Is it the politicians or the celebrities? Assuming that there's a difference anymore, but who gets angriest about it?
Celebrities do. Celebrities are angriest because they're relying on looking good constantly. So if their looks get threatened and ridiculed, they get rather upset. So politicians generally recognize that the need for cartoons. If they are in cartoons, that means their political
they're in the news.
life is they're in the news, and they usually want drawings of themselves. So and they always pay for them with the committee to re-elect such and such. I've never gotten a personal check from
Oh, really?
any of the, none, never. It's always a committee to re-elect.
Didn't you tell me one time that you did a caricature of former President Obama that was actually returned by the White House?
Yes, we did. We sent them, I believe, about 10 magazines for their White House library.
Okay.
And they've returned it to us.
Which one did they send back?
The one where Obama was depicted as a proctologist.
Okay, yeah.
So with a putting glove on the finger, they found offensive.
It says just relax.
And one other, he was not, but he joked about it. I don't think he was upset or anything.
Yeah.
It was then where I depicted him as with Putin on a sand beach, with Putin kicking sand in his face. So
Right.
he kind of smirked at that publicly, saying, "Oh, they depict me with Putin kicking sand and try to do better than me with him." Yeah. So I don't know. Clinton was pretty good about it. I gotta tell you. Bush was pretty good because he obviously had a sense of humor about it.
You'd have to, yeah.
Yeah, and the angriest I remember was Maria Shriver.
Really?
So we did a caricature of her for Los Angeles Times, and she went mad. She demanded apology and just went berserk. And she's a Kennedy. I mean, wouldn't you? If you're a Kennedy, wouldn't you get used to it?
Well, yeah. I mean, who hasn't done one of Teddy Kennedy as a lifeguard, for example, or something like that? I mean, the material writes itself. Right.
And they're notoriously, the Kennedys are notoriously sensitive about cartoons. I mean, David Levine told me, the great David Levine of New York Review of Books, told me once that he was disinvited from some event because the Kennedys were there, and they demanded that he would not be invited. So some tennis event, and that to me shows pettiness and
sure,
But mostly it's quite a lot of politicians enjoy it and laugh at it and have a pretty good sense of humor and in this country, at least.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, they're not going to line you up and shoot you here yet today. Last question.
No, they don't poison cartoonists here.
Yeah. No kidding. No wonder you left. Which brings me to my last question here. I've heard other folks who've come from, communist utopias and the workers' paradise and all that kind of thing. And they said that almost to a person that they came here to live free. And a common question that they ask, sometimes rhetorically, sometimes not, they ask something along the lines of, if the ideology that I escaped comes here to America, where do I go next? Have you felt the necessary to entertain that question?
Yes, I'm gonna go into the hills and get myself a Lee Enfield rifle and deal with. I'm not moving. I'm not going to anywhere.
Well, where else is there?
This is where I stand. Well, there are places too. People definitely. I know quite a lot of people who are entertaining some destinations, but I mean, thinking of going, but I'm not doing it. I'm staying. So, and I believe we can successfully fight the lunacy. We have the numbers, we have the people, and if there is a struggle of what Clausewitz was called, by other means,
right,
so,
right,
other than peaceful. I do believe we can handle it. Our side would win.
I think so.
But ideology wise, it's problem is we are products of our experience, life experience. So you come to certain conclusions about life through reflection and through your own personal experience.
Right.
And my personal experience has been communist Russia. So somebody else who was born here, my age, who did not have that experience, has their own experience, and they think that I'm making it up when I tell them that in a free hospital, you have cockroaches, so like in Indiana Jones. You switch the light on at night, and you see these giant armies of cockroaches running. They think I'm making it up, that it's all going to be this wonderful utopian free healthcare, because they do not have that experience that I have. And so far,
neither do I, but I can read.
Yes, well, so far I've been unsuccessful in I've showed pictures to people, and they just say this is a Photoshop. And you can literally Google Soviet hospital and see what the conditions are there. What the conditions were, and they just don't. They fail to imagine something that goes beyond their personal experience and their desire for something to be real, which is not. So that has been my my struggle for a while, but so far I've been unsuccessul. I haven't pursued one person. I mean, I haven't convinced one person that this is actually going to be bad if it is implemented.
No, if you're not going to learn through a history book, you're going to learn through experience, and that's
right.
That's unfortunate, I guess. But
so sometimes people just have to live through certain things, and in order to see that this is the way it's going to happen, or to get the reality.
Problem is that they consign everybody else to that fate too, and that's not very cool.
Well, that's why we need to organize.
Yeah, I agree. And humor helps out a lot, and that's where you come in with. Humor can be quite the weapon, as you know. And so that's where people like you are so effective. And then, as Rob Lone talked about, we need to talk policy. We need to explain the ramifications and consequences of various policies. And whenever it plays out, say, okay, it didn't have to be this way,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. No, humor is actually deadlier than the nuclear weapons, because you can use humor. Nuclear weapons, it's a logistical nightmare. You got to, put the bomb on the plane. It costs money to drop it. As you can fire a cartoon and it will get the target, and without much financial burden.
Exactly. Right. Well, if you do decide to go anywhere, just promise me that you'll stop by here first so we can chat some more. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
I will drive by you with sirens blazing.
That sounds good. All right, Mr. Roman Genn, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being on the program. It's been a treat.
Thank you so much, sir.
Folks, that was Roman Genn on the Dave Carter program. All right, here now with a segment that we haven't had in quite some time is Mark Benoit to talk about...
You weren't supposed to give out my last name.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's sportscaster Mark. He's here to talk about the Super Bowl, and he agrees to come on the program every now and then, but he's asked us not to show his picture, number one, or give out his last name to preserve whatever reputation that he has left.
That's okay. No one can spell it anyway.
Well, it's spelled B-E-N-O-I.
You jerk.
All right, fine. Nobody's going to know, right? Because it's from Louisiana, so it's spelled one way and pronounced another. So it's B-E-N-O-I-T. It's pronounced Benoit. Okay, for our friends not from Louisiana, it's Benoit. So, Sportscaster Benoit continues.
I hate you.
I know. Let's just get this done, shall we?
Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pillage the Kansas City Chiefs, ransacking Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahoney.
Can we just pronounce it correctly? It's Mahomes?
Well, he never stayed still long enough for me to read his name. The Chiefs' offensive line folded quicker than a $2 suitcase, leaving Mahomes to run for his life all night while completing just 26 of 49 passes.
Did you see the halftime show?
Yes, why?
Well, I'm just wondering why those people were walking around with those things over their heads, what that was all about.
They were athletic supporters.
You mean the performers or the things they were wearing on their heads?
In other news...
Hey, have you seen how this show has been doing lately?
No, I haven't.
Man, we're listened to in like 43 cities around the country, 30 countries around the world. So, I mean, it's just...
Why should I care? I mean, it's not
Well,
like...
Brooklyn, for example. People listen to... We have more listeners in Brooklyn than in any other city. And you'd think that their heads would explode because of their voting patterns. They're so wildly out of sync with what we talk about on this show.
Maybe their interest in your show is purely zoological. Maybe they've gotten bored
And
with their
I tell
own
you,
freak show and they want to have a look at...
Okay, but our demographics, I mean, our audience right now skews 80% guys and 20% ladies. So.
Yeah, it's all that highbrow humor.
Yeah, and the age groups, we do really well with the 23 to 27-year-old group. We do great with 35 to 44-year-olds, and actually we do well with folks that are age 60 on up to...
Dead.
Yeah, that's about right.
Meanwhile, the highlight of Super Bowl 2021 was the guy who came out of the stands and streaked across the field in all his gastronomic glory, decked out in shorts and a hot pink one-piece thong-looking bathing suit, prompting Roger Goodell to wonder out loud whether or not the streaker
incited the insurrection against the United States.
And that's sports. I'm Sportscaster Mart.
From a discreet location in Memphis, Tennessee, far from matches and sharp objects, it's Dave Carter on Ricochet.
Well, that was intriguing, wasn't it? How about Roman Genn? He's a lot of fun, full of mischief. His sense of humor is wonderful, and he's full of life lessons that those of us who grew up in a free country would do well to take to heart. Hey, do you like what you're hearing today? Because if you do, I know some psychologists and counselors. My sister, for example, is a clinical psychologist. She can help you out. She did most of her learning just watching our family. But if you're enjoying yourself, then you might want to take a look at some of the other things we have to offer on the Ricochet Audio Network. Of course, you can find Peter Robinson, who was Ronald Reagan's speechwriter, along with Cheers executive producer Rob Long. And then there's columnist James Lilacs, and each week they're on the flagship podcast where they talk with some of the most engaging personalities and interesting newsmakers that are on the scene today. New York Times bestselling author Andrew Klavan has got his own program, as does former Secretary of Education Bill Bennett. Commentary Magazine has a podcast here, and there's just so much more to look at and listen to. Something literally for everyone. So, as a rule, if you want to comment on a podcast post or comment on a main feed post or read or comments on stuff that are behind the paywall, you can do that for $4.50 a month. But if you want to write your own stuff and let the whole world see what you think about things, well, that's 50 cents more per month, so $5, and you can do what you want. Well, here's an idea. Let's say you don't want to spend $4 or $5 and you want to learn about this thing without having to fork out anything. Well, we thought of that too. Go to ricochet.com/gumbo. Gumbo. Since I'm a Louisiana kid, I'll give you we pass a good time like that. So you can get a free 30-day trial of Ricochet. Take a look at it, kick the tires, drive it around a little bit, do wheelies, drag race, whatever you want to do. And after 30 days, if you still like it, if you're having a good time, $4.50 gets you in the door. It doesn't get any better than that, I don't think. So, sound okay? Of course. Head on over to ricochet.gumbo, Gumbo, and you too can join the conversation. Well, folks, this is my favorite part of the show because this is the part of the show where I get to talk to Ricochet members who, as I mentioned a while back, they're from all different walks of life. And as a reminder, if you take me up on my offer and head over to ricochet.com/gumbo, you might end up here on the show as well because we got some phenomenal folks here at Ricochet. For example, my next guest is no stranger to this program nor to anyone who has spent any significant time on Ricochet. If you've done any real reading of the various columns and comments on Ricochet, odds are that you've read his work as well. Lt Col Brendan Welsh, U.S. Army Special Forces retired, is a graduate of West Point who went on to spend most of his career as a Special Forces officer. He served in Korea, Desert Storm, along with various adventures in Iraq and Mosul and Baghdad and Balad. He also commanded the Special Operations Command forward in Paraguay. Colonel Welsh earned the Bronze Star, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Army Meritorious Service Medal, the Iraqi Campaign Medal with Arrowhead Device, the Global War on Terror Expeditionary Medal, the Southwest Asia Service Medal with 2 Bronze Stars, the Special Forces Tab, Ranger Tab, Parachutist Badge. In other words, he's easily bored and has to take care of that in various exploits. He commanded the U.S. Army's Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape School, but happily those skills have not yet enabled him to escape the occasional appearance on this program. It's always great to have you with. How are you, sir?
Outstanding.
And his nickname is Boss Mongo, by the way. So it's an honor to have him here, folks. If it looks like I'm in a I'm in the middle of a candlelight dinner, the reason is I've had some of the lights go out in here. It just zapped out. So I literally, if you'll see on the side view, I've got these little LED candles, literally on the desk, so I can see what's going on, and you can kind of see my ugly face a little bit better too. So anyway, how have you been, Colonel?
Great.
And all the other.
No complaints. If I was doing any better, I'd be selling tickets because people want to watch.
Yeah, as I tell people at work, if I was doing any better, there'd be two of me, and we wouldn't want to do that. So it's been a while since I've talked to you. It's certainly been a long time since I've seen you. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just a few things have changed, I guess, since we last spoke, right? Not much. Starting out with general impressions with the new administration, and this may be too broad a question to kick this off or to answer anyway. Or so, if it needs correcting, please correct me. But with respect to America's adversaries, okay, do you think that they are happy or unhappy now that Joe Biden is in the White House?
I think they're giggling like little girls.
Okay, why is that?
Well, I mean, I think the new administration has proven that they're not in any way interested in putting America's national security and national interests first. And they're interested in this multilateral kind of ooey gooey and foreign policy that's going to focus more on process than it will on results.
Okay.
So that's my assessment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's narrow it down a little bit. We'll start with the Middle East. Former President Trump successfully, as you know, negotiated peace settlements between Israel and I believe at least 4 other countries: United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, while squeezing Iran financially with severe sanctions. Now, the new administration appears to be making overtures toward Iran already. Right. So, as someone who's spent some time in the region, boots on the ground, and all that, do you have any thoughts on those particular developments?
I am concerned that, again, like I said, ooey gooey foreign policy, which I think is a technical academic term. But
that's why I was over my head.
Right. It looks like, at least the initial, kind of scuttlebutt that we're hearing from and about the administration, it looks like they're going to jump right back into the previous Iranian deal, if the Iranians will be so kind as to let us, and it'll be something for nothing. We'll be giving up stuff, and they'll be ignoring us because they are absolutely untrustworthy. So
we're essentially putting them back in the driver's seat, then.
Right. I think. Yeah.
Okay. Because
I think, and all we're going to want is that that faint veneer of a possibly almost plausible imprimatur that we're working for peace. Right. And I'm thoroughly unimpressed by what I've seen so far.
Because I thought that with the overtures and the settlements with Morocco and Bahrain and the others, that kind of put Iran, it just went around them completely.
Yeah, Iran and the Palestinians.
Yeah,
right.
Reducing their
who've always been kind of the toad in the road. So, and it's just I think maybe the Saudis were waiting to see what happened with this election. But I just wish that the Saudis had signed on to the Abraham Accords before the election. That would have meant that whatever happened in the election, it would have been a significant step in bringing peace to the Middle East. Whereas now they can still kind of.
What about Korea? Just to go globetrotting for a minute, that little gargoyle over there in Pyongyang has been more subdued the last few years, it seems. Do you expect him to start acting out again soon, or has he already?
I think he will. I mean, it's his nature, right? Can't help it. And he had a carrot and stick thing going with the Trump administration, and I doubt that the Biden administration is going to be bringing any sticks.
It'll be carrots and carrots.
Discussions with it'll be carrots and carrots with Korea. I think, but the great unknown is because their general population was so ill-fed, malnourished, and everything else, that one question that's unknowable right now is how badly was North Korea hit by the coronavirus? You know,
that's true. Yeah,
it could well be that they got enough on their hands dealing with the issue, then they don't have as much freedom of movement as they're used to when they start throwing dog doo around.
Well, and the regime there is a little less concerned with the welfare of their own folks, except insofar as of utilitarian value.
Right. A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so, I was thinking about this when I was writing up some of these thoughts yesterday. With the first Gulf War and nearly every subsequent conflict in that region, the left is never tired of the chant, "No blood for oil." Remember that? I mean, it's just a constant refrain. So in the last few years, we've made rather dramatic progress toward energy independence for America, which lessens the chances of us having to go over there again. They can do what they want, and we're not tied to that. So the left apparently is not happy with that, and so now they're going to cripple our own energy production in the U.S., which steers us back toward being dependent on fanatics in other countries that don't like us a whole lot, thereby increasing the chances of the whole blood for oil thing. Am I missing something here?
No, I think you nailed it. The inconsistencies in the thinking is very stark, I think, to you and I and most people that are going to watch your show. But I think that the inconsistencies are total blind spots to people that are going to be making policy over the next 4 years.
I'm going to rant a little bit, but from foreign policy to things that here at home, there seems to be some virtue that these people see in vulnerability, some virtue in defenselessness, whether it's predators on the international stage or predators here at home. They just want us in a position where we're at the mercy of predators. I don't get it. I'm not going to ask you to crawl in their head.
I think they want, going on your theme, I hadn't thought about it that way, but they want defenselessness and vulnerability nationally, but politically, I think they're going to be thoroughly invested in trying to indemnify themselves and be the exact opposite.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There'll be a velvet glove treatment to those who would hurt us, but an iron fist treatment as respects to the way that they treat us.
Right. Exactly.
It's bizarre.
So, and I was just contemplating doing a post on this, and I may well get to it hopefully over this weekend. But it just, like, when you talk about the intellectual inconsistency, have you seen new SecDef General Retired Lloyd Austin doing a 60-day stand down to cleanse extremism from the Department of Defense?
Yeah, extremism defined as what? I don't remember.
Exactly.
Was there a stand down after the Fort Hood shooting for 60 days when you had people just being slaughtered by someone who was yelling Allahu Akbar, which, by the way, means my motives are unclear?
Right. No, there was not, surprisingly. And the thing is yes, I would like to see the definition, the DoD definition of extremism, which I don't think it's been published yet because I think they're still massaging it. But
it's malleable.
It seems to me that, yes, but they're going to have to put something up there. And I think we know what they're going to do. But it seems to me that if you enlist in the military, you have signed a blank check for cash up unto your very life. And to me, that's kind of extreme. You know, if you're taught, hey, your battle buddy, your ranger buddy, you will jump on a grenade for that guy. To me, that seems kind of extreme. You know, the last stanza of the Ranger Creed, readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to drive on and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. That's kind of extreme.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right, yeah.
So let's define our terms here, Lloyd. Oh, and by the way, I have a little bit of history with SecDef Austin.
I wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah, no, he was my actually way back. If you go on the Wayback Machine, he was a major when I was a cadet in school, and he was my battalion tactical officer. And I would say he's not a fan of Mongo, and Mongo's not a fan of him. But at least I helped keep the guy busy, So
yeah. Yeah, you could do a post on that. Maybe your swan song, but
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I've swanned out. So
okay, all right.
No worries.
So, taking a view from 30,000 feet, I don't know if you've given this much thought, but what kind of national security threats do you see emerging on the horizon during the Biden administration? And I mean, do you, as an ancillary thing, do you give any credence to what we've been hearing, that when Trump was in office, there were no new wars? Is that do you think that's likely to continue, or does vulnerability, invite aggression, et cetera?
Well, I think, I think vulnerability invites aggression, even if it's just a reconnaissance by fire, right? Even if they're just
I'm sorry, even by what?
Even if it's a reconnaissance by fire.
Okay.
They'll be probing to see what can we get away with this administration. My assessment, and we'll see, is that our adversaries going to be able to get away with a lot. But the biggest national security threat I see is obviously China, and I don't see them. I don't see it being a military confrontation. I just think with the vulnerability that you've mentioned, us opening ourselves up to asymmetric attacks where China will do everything but employ its military. It may well employ its military in the region, in the Pacific Rim, to expand its influence and its reach. But here, they're just going to be doing everything they can to leave, and at least that's my assessment. And we will be thoroughly unprepared for it.
That's just dandy. But we're going to take a 60-day stand down so we can make sure people are nice. I've been, in case you haven't noticed, I know you saw the last talk with Rob Long, who tried to inject some sort of positivity into me, and it was, middling success. But I've been fairly depressed lately with respect to what the future holds for the country. Between fast tracking millions of illegal immigrants to citizenship and some other progressive initiatives, it looks like there'll be one party rule here. The iron fist, as we were talking about. How about you? Do you share my pessimism, or can you talk me out of this funk, or what? I guess what I'm asking is,
I can drop the dump truck of funk to add over you, but I'm not excited to cheer you up, brother. I just think overall, we have too many people on the progressive Democrat side that have zero regard for the Constitution, So I think that they have the will to power. They are willing to subvert the Constitution as required to get that power. And I think that Republicans are back on their heels because, unlike the Democrats, I think Republicans see the Democrats as a political adversary, and they don't see them as the enemy. Where I stand, and I'm not talking violence or anything else.
No,
so, hey, NSA guys that monitor the Dave Carter show, I'm not advocating violence. But I'm saying I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution.
Right.
And I did that from the profound belief that that's the greatest social contract ever made. And so, I am not optimistic. I think because they're kind of a goat rope clown show that maybe they'll screw it up in their effort to secure power for the long term, but we'll have to see.
Invariably, like with Obamacare and some other things, the bureaucratic ineptitude is impossible to hide, and that's what bites them as much as anything else.
Right. And just the staggering number of executive orders that have come out. I mean, one would think, it's obvious but one would think that both Democrats and Republicans in the Congress would say, hey, we kind of got to, claw back some of our power under the Constitution. Now, they're not going to be doing until and I think it's until, not if, they punt the filibuster through the goalpost of life.
Yeah.
I think that that we're not going to get any legislation, and it's like, hey, legislators, you have the executive branch doing what you're empowered to do and what you're supposed to be doing. And one would think if they could get bipartisan about anything, it would be that. But I think the Democrats are more than happy, again, because they're aconstitutional.
Do you have any counsel? You notice I'm not going to tell you what's in the cup, but I'm enjoying it. So do you have any counsel? This is out of nowhere, but this would be my last question. But do you have any counsel for Joe Sixpack sitting at home, or the guy working, or he has a job at the moment, who is just appalled at what they're seeing? What do they do? I mean, there's Ricochet. There's places you can write. You can meet among friends, or whatever. But what would you counsel?
I would just say, because everything I do that I was taught when fighting is principally based, right?
Yeah.
So I would say never forget that your rights flow from your creator. And these Muldoons in Congress, whether they're Republican or Democrat, have nothing to do with your rights as a United States citizen. So start from that. Refuse to give up your rights. And I think progressives and even some Republicans saw this an opportunity because so many Americans were so quiescent during this pandemic. But I think they're misreading it. It's not, you read a lot of stuff about, we're all sheep down. No, I just think Americans are good people, and they were told, hey, if you do these things, it will, you'll be helping out. You'll be taking care of the rest of the citizenry.
Right.
And so because they're good people, they went along with it. I personally believe that's what it was, and I also believe that will be misinterpreted by people in power. So I would just say start with the adamant decision or resolution that all of your rights stem from the creator, and then move forward from there of when you make decisions about what you will and will not do and what you will and will not put up with. And I would go back to my days at the Sears School, where one of the things we taught was sometimes there is no right decision or wrong decision. Sometimes there's no good decision or bad decision. Sometimes there's only bad or worse.
Make the best bad decision, yeah.
That's right. Make the best bad decision and look for small victories. If you are not in a position to look for small victories, look for things you can do, that will keep hope alive.
I think you raise a good point about the pandemic and people's response to it, and I think the politicians, we would do well to remind them and to remind ourselves that they should not mistake altruism with weakness, with complacency, right?
Concur. And I think that's beginning to fray a little bit,
Yeah, right, exactly.
I don't know how things are in Memphis. I can tell you down here, I mean, in a very quick turn, Governor DeSantis has become one of my personal heroes, and all I can do is think about how narrow his victory was over that meth smoking, gay escort carousing Gillum guy was. But DeSantis is, and I think that's and I don't think the military, I don't think the media is really propounding it, but Florida's doing better than both New York and California.
Yeah.
And we have very little lockdown left. I mean, almost nothing. If you go into like a big grocery store or something, the big store here is Publix. They ask you to wear a mask.
Right.
And most Americans do. I mean, most of the people down here do. But other than that, now realize I'm not a big club going guy. I'm not a big, I don't go out very much. I have a small circle of friends, and usually we just hang out right here in the neighborhood.
Right.
So I'm not a judge of it, but with some of the lads that I work with, it's kind of turned back on,
Yeah.
and it's so I wish there was more comparative analysis about what works and what doesn't. Because I think that,
well, that would expose some things probably. They probably don't want to do that. But here in Memphis, they're easing up on some of the restrictions. But like the stores and things, and you're in public, you're still supposed to have your mask. And what they do, they actually shut down some businesses yesterday where that we're not enforcing it, because if people walk into a business and your customers are not wearing a mask, it's the business that gets fined. Which encourage. So and where I work, I mean, people for some reason they think that if you wear your mask like this, like Abe Lincoln.
On the chin, yes.
The Amish mask or whatever, that's going to work. My favorite was the dude that came in and his mask was like this. I said, I don't think that's good way. I think that's not going to help.
Right. Well, it's kind of. I mean, I have a mask at work to my cage. I come in kind of dressed like this in t-shirt and shorts and everything. Change into my professional clothes at my cage, and then just grab my mask off the shelf and go.
Right.
And I got a couple of masks floating around in my car, but I would say it amazes me. Now down here in the Keys, you rarely, if ever, see somebody wearing a mask without cause, right?
Right.
Like I said, if you're going to a grocery store, pretty much everybody puts. But I've been up in Miami and seen people in their car alone with a mask on.
That's my favorite. Yes.
Like, what do you think you're accomplishing? And especially
they're protecting the steering wheel.
Dave, I have no idea. I mean, and I'm not a medical professional. My wife is, and actually, I've even been a little bit dismayed at how a lot of medical professionals are reacting to this. I had a long discussion with a surgeon the other day about the value of masks. And I was like, "Come on, man! Let's again convince me that there's merit to doing it, and I'll be happy to do it." But so far, especially with the masks, like you said, one, the way people are wearing them. Like what I love is in a conference room situation, even when everybody's kind of sort of socially distanced, it's when the person who's speaking or briefing takes their mask off.
So that they can project, yes.
So that they can project. And then when they're done speaking and done, sending molecules out into the room, then they put their mask on.
Right, yeah.
So it's frustrating.
That's the Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. So, but it is what it is. And I think Americans are getting over it. I think, this 100-day mask mandate that the new administration has put in is just going down. I mean, we're going down the road of silliness, right? Like we have Dr. Fauci saying, well, once you've been vaccinated, you still need to wear a mask. So somebody who's had both shots is immune to the disease. Therefore, one would suppose, although you won't get this information from the CDC, one would suppose that then if you're vaccinated, you can't or you will not have or carry enough of a viral load to infect anybody else. And let's assume success with this clown car cluster of the vaccination program. Mm-hmm. But if you're vaccinated and somebody else is vaccinated, we need a mask because of why? We need to socially distance because of why? Right. I mean, it's just...
that brings up the point, or circles back to the point, to talk like a press secretary, that you were making about not mistaking altruism for gullibility and stupidity and blind obedience. And we need to remember that, and the politicians need to remember that as well.
Concur, sure. And I'm sorry, it's just this whole...
Oh, I know.
Just kind of push my contrarian button all the way down,
Oh, and, mine's stuck.
Right. Yeah, to channel a little bit of Pulp Fiction. I'm like a race car in the red, Dave.
That may be the title of this show. I like that. All right, so hey, thank you for taking time to be with us today. I really appreciate it. We finally got everything working, and here we are. So,
absolutely, my pleasure, Dave.
It's been a pleasure, folks. That's retired Lt Col Brendan Welsh, U.S. Army Special Forces, on the program.
Some podcasts shouldn't be tossed aside lightly. They should be thrown with great force. Broadcasting from Memphis, Tennessee, at the intersection of spellbinding conversation and mischievous humor. Your host, Dave Carter, brings you the exceptional audio-visual experience you deserve from podcasts and live stream events. For irresistible analysis, playful laughs, and audaciously good music, it's the Dave Carter Show.
How's that for audacious music, huh? But you won't hear that on an elevator. On the other hand, you're probably not going to hear conversations like we've had today on an elevator or anywhere else for that matter, other than this program. And that's why we're proud, and of course we're delighted to bring you the sort of audacious celebration of the American spirit that we have here. So if you want to hear more of this kind of programming, I invite you to go over to my own little website at davecarteronline.com, and you'll find a page dedicated exclusively to the podcast. You'll hear more conversations that I've had with Colonel Welsh and with Roman Genn, Molly Hemingway, Pat Sajak, and a whole lot of other folks. So tune in on that, see what you think. And by the way, we've got this thing going, even with the LED candles, thanks to the good software from ecamlive.com. They don't pay me to do this, obviously, but if you're thinking about doing your own live stream or a podcast event, an audio-visual event, they're a good source to get a lot of this stuff done, Ecamm Live. Also, on my little website, you'll find a collection of articles that I've written, many of which predate my time at Ricochet or the Federalist, go back to the military days, and even pieces from that time. And then there's a page there called The Inkwell, and that's where I write a lot more personal, introspective pieces, if you will, for readers of that website. And again, that's DaveCarteronline.com. This show, as I mentioned, is growing. We're heard across the country now and in over 30 countries around the world. If you like what you heard today, then feel free to go over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating, tap out some thoughts if you like, if you're so inclined. I read them all, and I appreciate hearing and reading your thoughts. This is the second edition of the show that we've had a video of the podcast, and it just goes to show that even with the lights out by candlelight, we keep going. I think this may be the most romantic podcast I've ever done. I just sort of brought a bottle of wine, I suppose. As always, we've got some great shows coming up in the future, and I think you'll enjoy some compelling conversation about all sorts of intriguing and timely topics as well. So with that, folks, it's been a pleasure. My thanks, as always, to my guest, Roman Genn, and to Colonel Welsh. My very special thanks to you, the listener. I am Dave Carter, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Dave Carter Show. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a single episode. And while you're there, please leave a review and tell us what you think. And on behalf of all of us at The Dave Carter Show and the Ricochet Audio Network, thank you for listening.